The glass partition between us was smudged with fingerprints from 1,000 desperate conversations. My brother pressed his palm against it anyway. I watched him do it, watched his hand flatten against the dirty glass, and I couldn't bring myself to lift mine to meet it. Not this time. Not after what I had done. "You look terrible," said through the phone receiver. His voice was tinny, distorted by the prison's ancient intercom system. "You sleeping?" No, I hadn't slept properly in 2 years, 4 months, and 11 days. That's how long he'd been in here. That's how long I'd been free. "I'm fine." Liar. He smiled. Same crooked smile he'd had since we were kids. Same dimple in his left cheek. Same warmth in his eyes that I didn't deserve. Have you ever looked at someone who loves you unconditionally and known, absolutely known, that you've destroyed them? That every good thing they've ever done for you has been repaid with the worst kind of betrayal? If you have, then you understand why I couldn't lift my hand to that glass. If you haven't, God, I hope you never do. But stick around. Tell me in the comments if you think you could live with what I've lived with. "How's Mom?" Ethan asked. "She doesn't leave her room much." "And Dad?" "He doesn't leave the bottle much." Ethan nodded slowly. None of this was news. Our family had been disintegrating since the night of the accident, the night that put him in this orange jumpsuit and me in a prison of my own making. "Listen, Danny," he said, leaning closer to the glass. "I need to tell you something. About what happened. About that night." My blood turned to ice water. "What about it?" "I know." "Time's up," the guard's voice cut through like a blade. "Wrap it up, Walker." Ethan held my gaze for one long, terrible moment. Then he hung up the receiver, pressed his palm harder against the glass, and mouthed 2 words that I couldn't quite make out before they led him away. I sat there for 10 minutes after he was gone, staring at the smudge his hand had left, because I was pretty sure he'd said, "I know." I drove home on autopilot. 37 miles of highway between the state correctional facility and my apartment in Riverside, and I don't remember a single mile of it. I know. What did he know? How much had he figured out? And if he knew the truth, why hadn't he said anything in 2 years? The questions circled my brain like vultures waiting for something to die. My apartment was exactly as I'd left it. Blinds drawn, dishes in the sink, empty whiskey bottles lined up on the counter like soldiers standing at attention. I had become the thing I'd always sworn I wouldn't. A younger version of my father, drowning myself one glass at a time. The difference was that Dad drank because his son was in prison. I drank because I was the reason why. I collapsed onto the couch and pulled out my phone. Scrolled through my contacts until I found her name. Sarah Chen, my therapist. The only person in the world who knew what I'd done. Attorney-client privilege, she called it? Or was it doctor-patient? I could never remember. All I knew was that she couldn't tell anyone, and that made her the only safe person to talk to. "Danny?" She answered on the second ring. "How was the visit?" "He knows." Silence on the other end.
He said he knows, Sarah. Or he started to say it. The guard cut him off, but I saw his lips move. He said, "I know." "You sure?" "No, I don't know. Maybe." I pressed my palm against my eyes until I saw stars. What if he's known this whole time? What if he's been sitting in that cell for 2 years knowing that I'm the one who should be there? Would that change what you need to do? What I needed to do? We talked about this 100 times. The right thing, the moral thing. Confess, tell the truth, free my brother and take his place. But I was a coward. That was the simple, ugly truth at the center of everything. I was a coward who let his brother take the fall. And every day I didn't confess was another day I chose myself over him. "I don't know if I can," I whispered. "I know." Sarah's voice was gentle but firm. "But Danny, the longer you wait, the worse it gets. I know, you've told me 100 times. Then why?" "Because I'm scared, Sarah." The words ripped out of me like something feral. "Because I'm terrified. Because the thought of prison, of being locked in a cage, of losing everything." My voice broke. "I'm a coward. We've established this. You're not a coward. You're human. But human beings can only carry so much weight before something breaks. She was right. Something was breaking. Had been breaking for months now. The nightmares were getting worse. The drinking was getting heavier. Last week, I'd caught myself standing on the edge of the Riverside Bridge, watching the water churn 60 feet below, wondering if it would hurt. I need to see you, I said. Tomorrow? I'll clear my afternoon. I hung up and stared at the ceiling until the whiskey pulled me under. That night, I dreamed of the accident. Same dream I'd had every night since it happened. The screech of tires, the sickening crunch of metal, a body lying broken on the asphalt, and Ethan's voice, calm and clear. Run, Danny. I'll handle this. I woke up screaming. 2 years, 5 months earlier. The party was at Marcus Webb's lake house, end of summer blowout. Everyone from our graduating class was there, plus half the kids from state who'd been home for break. I wasn't supposed to be driving. That was the plan. I'd be the designated drunk, and Ethan would be the designated driver. Simple, safe, smart. But Ethan had gotten into a fight with his girlfriend around midnight. Big, ugly, public fight. She'd stormed off with her friends, and he'd started drinking. Heavy drinking. The kind of drinking that came from 2 years of a relationship imploding in 30 minutes. By 2 a.m., he could barely stand. We need to go, I told him. You've been drinking too. Not as much as you. That was true. I'd had 4 beers over 6 hours. Buzzed maybe, but not drunk. Not like Ethan, who'd put away half a bottle of vodka in 90 minutes. Fine. He tossed me the keys to his Mustang. Just be careful. That car's worth more than your life. He was joking. That was his sense of humor. Dark, self-deprecating, delivered with that crooked smile. I didn't laugh. I should have called an Uber. I should have called our parents. I should have done literally anything except get behind the wheel of that car after drinking. But I was 22 years old and invincible.
Nothing bad could happen to me. Things only happen to other people. The drive home was 12 miles, country roads mostly. Dark, winding, no streetlights. I'd driven them 100 times. I knew every curve, every dip, every blind corner. What I didn't know was that Richard Okonkwo would be walking home that night. He was 17, junior at Riverside High. His car had broken down 2 miles back, and he was walking to the gas station for help. I never saw him, not until it was too late. Not until he was illuminated in my headlights, frozen like a deer, eyes wide with terror. I swerved, hit the brakes. But physics doesn't care about intentions. The impact was... I can't describe it. Won't describe it. Some sounds don't deserve words. When I finally got the car stopped, 50 feet down the road, Ethan was already scrambling out. He ran back to where Richard lay. I followed, my legs moving without my brain's permission. He was still alive. Barely. Breathing in these wet, ragged gasps that sounded like someone drowning on dry land. Call 911, Ethan said. His voice was steady, stone cold sober, like the adrenaline had burned away every drop of alcohol in his system. Danny, call 911, now. I pulled out my phone, hands shaking so badly I could barely type in the numbers. 911, what's your emergency? Before I could answer, Ethan ripped the phone from my hand. There's been an accident, County Road 7, mile marker 23. Someone's hurt, send an ambulance. He hung up, looked at me, and said the words that would haunt me for the rest of my life. Run, Danny. Take my car, drive home, and don't say a word to anyone. What? No, I can't. You were driving. You'd been drinking. They'll test you. You'll fail. He grabbed my shoulders. I was sober until an hour ago. I can pass it off as recent consumption. My blood alcohol will be lower than yours. Ethan, I can't let you. You're not letting me do anything. I'm telling you. His eyes were fierce, burning. I'm your big brother. This is what I do. I protect you. Now run. I ran. I took his car, drove home, and climbed into bed. Lay there, shaking, waiting for the knock on the door that never came.
Richard Okonkwo died at 3:47 a.m. at Riverside General Hospital. Ethan was arrested at 4:15 a.m., still standing by the body, covered in a dead boy's blood. He never told anyone the truth, never said a word about who was really driving, took a plea deal for vehicular manslaughter while intoxicated, and got sentenced to 5 years. And I let him do it. The funeral was 3 days later. I didn't go, couldn't. The thought of sitting in that church, surrounded by Richard's family, knowing what I knew, it was too much. Ethan's arrest was all over the news. Local man charged in hit-and-run death. Golden boy turned killer. The story wrote itself. Ethan Walker, star quarterback, honor student, everybody's favorite son, revealed as a drunk driver who'd killed a teenager and tried to flee the scene. They got the story wrong, of course. He hadn't tried to flee. He'd stayed. He'd called for help. He'd held Richard's hand while the boy took his last breaths. But that didn't fit the narrative, so they ignored it. Mom fell apart first. Stopped going to work. Stopped going to church. Stopped going anywhere.
She just sat in her room, staring at pictures of Ethan, trying to reconcile the boy she'd raised with the monster the newspapers described. Dad fell apart second. He'd always been a drinker. Weekends, holidays, nothing serious. But after Ethan's arrest, it became a full-time occupation. He quit his job, liquidated his retirement to pay for Ethan's legal defense, became a ghost haunting his own house, a bottle always within arm's reach. And me? I fell apart third. Slowly, quietly, like a building with a cracked foundation, holding together on the outside while crumbling from within. I moved out of my parents' house 2 months after the arrest, got an apartment across town, started seeing Sarah Chin for anxiety and depression, which was the polite way of saying crippling guilt and suicidal ideation. She was the one who got me to confess. Not to the police, I wasn't ready for that, might never be ready, but to her. In her office, with the door closed and the blinds drawn, I told her everything. "You need to tell the truth," she said. "You need to confess." "I know." "Then why don't you?" I couldn't answer that question then. It took me months of therapy to understand the real reason. Fear. Not just of prison, though that was part of it. Not just of shame, though that was there too. I was afraid that confessing would make Ethan's sacrifice meaningless. He'd given up his freedom to protect me. If I confessed, all those months, years eventually, would have been for nothing. His suffering would have been pointless. The noble act would have been wasted on a brother who couldn't even accept the gift he'd been given. That's what I told myself anyway. That's the lie I used to justify staying silent. The truth was simpler and uglier. I didn't confess because I didn't want to go to prison. Period. Full stop. End of story. I was a coward then, and I was a coward now, and all the therapy in the world couldn't change the fundamental architecture of my soul. 14 months after the accident. The knock came at 9 p.m. on a Thursday. I wasn't expecting anyone, never had visitors. My friends from before the accident had slowly drifted away, some because they believed Ethan was guilty, others because they could sense something wrong with me, a rot they couldn't name but could definitely smell. I opened the door to find a woman I didn't recognize, mid-50s, dark skin, graying hair, eyes that looked like they'd cried every tear they had and were now running on empty. "Daniel Walker?" "Yes." "My name is Grace Okonkwo." She said it calmly, clearly, like she was introducing herself at a business meeting. Richard was my son. The floor tilted beneath my feet. I'm so sorry for your loss." The words came out automatically, meaningless platitudes I'd heard on TV 1,000 times. "May I come in?" Every instinct screamed at me to say no, to close the door, lock it, pretend this wasn't happening. But something in her eyes, something broken and desperate and terrifyingly calm, made me step aside. She walked past me into the apartment, took in the empty bottles, the unwashed dishes, the general atmosphere of decay.
"You're not doing well," she observed. "No. Good." The word hit me like a slap. "I've been watching you, Daniel,
For months now, trying to understand why you're suffering when it was your brother who killed my son." My throat closed up. Don't. She held up a hand. "Don't lie to me. I've spent 14 months researching that night, talking to people who were at that party, piecing together who was drinking and who wasn't." She turned to face me. "Your brother was sober until 11 p.m. He didn't start drinking until after his girlfriend left. You, on the other hand, had been drinking all night." "I was the designated drunk. Yes, I know." Her voice was ice. "And then something happened, didn't it? Something that made you get behind the wheel instead of your sober brother." I couldn't speak, couldn't move, couldn't breathe. "I don't have proof," she continued, "nothing that would hold up in court. But I know, Daniel, a mother knows. Just like I knew the moment I saw your brother's mugshot that something didn't add up. He didn't look guilty. He looked resigned, like someone who'd made a decision they knew would cost them everything." She stepped closer, so close I could see the individual tears welling in her eyes. "Did you kill my son, Daniel?" The question hung in the air between us. I could feel the truth pressing against my chest, demanding to be released. "Here's where I need to ask you something. If you were in my position, right there, face to face with the mother of the boy you killed, what would you do? Would you finally tell the truth, or would you protect yourself one more time?" I've thought about this moment every day since it happened. Tell me what you think in the comments. Be honest. The truth. For once in your miserable life, tell the truth. I opened my mouth, and the lie came out anyway. "It was Ethan. I'm sorry, it was Ethan." Grace Okonkwo looked at me for a long, terrible moment. Then she nodded slowly, turned, and walked out of my apartment without another word. I collapsed against the wall and sobbed, because I'd seen the look in her eyes as she left. She didn't believe me. She knew. She knew everything, and she was going to do something about it. I waited for the police to come. For days, then weeks, I jumped at every knock, every phone call, every car that slowed down outside my window. But Grace Okonkwo didn't go to the police. She went to the newspapers. "Questions surround Walker case," the headline read. "Victim's mother demands new investigation." The article didn't name me, not directly, but it laid out the timeline, the drinking patterns, the inconsistencies in Ethan's confession. It painted a picture of reasonable doubt that even a child could understand. The comments section exploded, armchair detectives analyzing every detail, people demanding Ethan's release, others defending the original conviction. My brother's case became a true crime obsession, dissected on podcasts and YouTube channels and Reddit threads. And through it all, I stayed silent. I moved to a new apartment, changed my phone number, deleted all my social media, became a ghost, invisible, untraceable. But Grace found me anyway. She'd show up at my work, my gym, the coffee shop where I got my morning espresso. She never said anything, never confronted me again. Just stood there, watching, her presence a constant reminder of what I'd done.
It was psychological warfare, and it was working. I started having panic attacks, full-blown, can't breathe, think I'm dying panic attacks. They'd hit me randomly, in meetings, on the subway, in the middle of the night. My doctor prescribed Xanax. I started mixing it with whiskey. Sarah told me I was spiraling. I told her I knew. Neither of us knew how to stop it. "You could still confess," she said during one of our sessions. "It's not too late." It's been 14 months. If I confess now, they'll charge me with additional crimes, obstruction, filing a false report, making a false statement. You didn't file any reports or make any statements. No, but Ethan did, and I let him. That makes me complicit. So you're going to let him rot in prison to protect yourself from additional charges? When she put it like that, it sounded monstrous. Because it was monstrous. I was a monster. The funny thing about guilt is that it doesn't make you better. You'd think it would. All that suffering, all that self-flagellation, surely it must be transformative. But it isn't. Guilt just makes you worse. It burrows into you like a parasite, feeding on your soul, turning you into exactly the kind of person who deserves to feel guilty. I was living proof. There's something else, Sarah said, something I've been hesitant to bring up. What? Your brother's parole hearing is in 6 months. If everything goes well, he could be released early. 6 months? Ethan could be free in 6 months. That's good news, right? It could be. But Danny, she leaned forward, if he gets out and the truth ever comes to light, if Grace Okonkwo finds real evidence, or if someone from the party comes forward, it won't just destroy you, it'll destroy him too. He'll be charged with perjury, obstruction, accessory after the fact. He'll go right back to prison, maybe for longer. The weight of it crushed me. Every path forward led to destruction. If I confessed, Ethan's sacrifice was wasted. If I stayed silent, I lived in constant fear of exposure. If Ethan got out and the truth emerged later, we'd both go down. There was no winning. There was only different ways of losing. 2 years after the accident. Ethan's parole was denied. The reasons were technical: overcrowding considerations, risk assessment scores, bureaucratic nonsense. But the result was simple. He wouldn't be getting out early. He'd serve his full 5 years, maybe more if he had incidents on his record. I found out through our mother, who'd somehow found the strength to visit him every month. She called me that night, her voice hollow. "He's not coming home, Danny. I know, I heard. He asked about you, asked why you haven't visited lately." I hadn't visited in 3 months. Every time I saw his face through that glass partition, the guilt became unbearable. I'd started making excuses. Work, illness, traffic. I'll go next week. "He doesn't believe you'll come," he told me. She paused. "He said he's written you a letter. He's going to mail it." A letter? The words sent ice through my veins. What kind of letter? I don't know. He wouldn't tell me. Just said there were things he needed to say that he couldn't say out loud. I hung up and spent the next 3 days in a state of barely contained panic.
Every time the mail arrived, I'd sprint to the mailbox, heart pounding, hands shaking. On the 4th day, it came. A plain white envelope with the prison's return address stamped in the corner. I sat in my car for an hour before I opened it. "Danny, I know you've been avoiding me. I don't blame you. If our positions were reversed, I'd probably avoid me too. There are things I need to say, things I should have said a long time ago, but I was too proud, or too scared, or too determined to be the big brother who always had everything under control. I know, Danny. I've known since that night. My vision blurred. I had to stop reading, wipe my eyes, force myself to continue. I wasn't as drunk as you thought I was. The fight with Melissa sobered me up fast. When you offered to drive, I saw how unsteady you were. I should have stopped you. I should have insisted on calling a cab, or staying at the party, or literally anything else. But I was tired and angry, and I just wanted to go home. So I let you drive. And when you hit that boy, when I saw what happened, I knew exactly what it meant. You would go to prison. Your life would be over. And it would be my fault because I let you get behind the wheel when I knew you shouldn't. So I made a choice, a brother's choice. I took responsibility because I was responsible. Not for driving, that was you, but for letting you drive, for putting you in that position,
for being so wrapped up in my own problems that I didn't protect you the way I should have. I'm not angry, Danny. I need you to understand that. I'm not angry, and I don't regret what I did. I'd do it again, 100 times, 1,000. But I need you to know that I know, because carrying this secret is killing you, and I can see it. Every visit, you look worse, thinner, paler, more haunted. You need to let go of the guilt, little brother. Not because what happened wasn't terrible. It was. A boy died. A family was destroyed. Nothing can undo that. But destroying yourself won't bring them back. And watching you waste away from behind this glass is worse than anything they could do to me in here. I love you. I've always loved you. And I forgive you. Now you need to forgive yourself. Ethan. I read the letter 3 times. Then I got out of my car, walked into my apartment, and called Sarah. He knows, I said. He's always known. Oh, Danny, he forgives me. He says he forgives me. How do you feel about that? I thought about the question, really thought about it. Like I don't deserve it. Maybe not, but he gave it to you anyway. What are you going to do with it? I didn't have an answer. I visited Ethan the next week, first time in 4 months. He looked different, harder. Prison had carved away the soft edges of the boy I'd grown up with and left something sharper behind. But when he smiled, that same crooked smile, I could still see my brother underneath. You got my letter? Yeah. And I don't know what to say. He leaned back in his chair, the phone receiver pressed to his ear. You don't have to say anything. I didn't write it to make you feel worse. I wrote it because you needed to hear it. How can you forgive me? How can you just accept this? Because I love you, Danny.
And because I made my choice. It's done. Nothing either of us can do will change it. I could confess. I could tell the truth. And then what? We both go to prison? Mom and Dad lose both their sons instead of just one? He shook his head. That's not justice. That's just more destruction. But you're innocent. I'm not innocent. His voice hardened. I let you drive. I knew you'd been drinking, and I let you get behind the wheel anyway. In a just world, I'd be in here for that alone. That's not how the law works. No, but it's how guilt works. He tapped his chest. I've got my own demons, little brother, my own weight to carry. You're not the only one who can't sleep at night. I stared at him through the dirty glass. This man who'd sacrificed everything for me, who'd spent 2 years in a cage so I could be free, who carried his own guilt like a stone around his neck, even though he'd never been behind the wheel. There's something else, he said. Something I need to tell you. What? Grace Okonkwo came to see me. My blood ran cold. When? Last week. She's been researching Danny, digging into the case. She knows something doesn't add up. I know. She came to my apartment. Over a year ago. She told me. She also told me what you said when she asked you directly. The shame was overwhelming. I couldn't. I'm not judging you. I'm warning you. He leaned forward. She's not going to stop. She's been working with a private investigator. They're re-interviewing everyone who was at that party. They can't prove anything. Maybe not, but she doesn't need to prove it in court. She just needs to create enough doubt, enough noise. Eventually, someone will talk. Someone always talks. What do I do? Ethan's eyes met mine through the glass. That's not my decision to make. It's yours. It's always been yours. The guard called time. Ethan pressed his palm to the glass. This time, I pressed mine to meet it. I love you, he said. I love you too. I walked out of that prison knowing that everything was about to change. 3 weeks later, Grace Okonkwo's private investigator found the witness she'd been looking for. His name was Tyler Briggs. He'd been at the party that night. He'd seen me get behind the wheel. He'd watched us drive away, and he'd known, even then, even drunk, that something bad was going to happen. Tyler had kept quiet for 2 years. Guilt, fear,
loyalty to old friends, the usual cocktail of reasons why witnesses don't come forward. But Grace was persistent. And Tyler, it turned out, had his own demons, his own sleepless nights, his own need for absolution. He told her everything. The news broke on a Tuesday morning. New witness in Walker case claims wrong brother convicted. I woke up to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. By noon, the police had issued a statement. They were reopening the investigation. Ethan's conviction would be reviewed, and they wanted to speak with me. I called Sarah. What do I do? You know what you need to do. I'm scared. I know. But Danny, this is your chance. Your chance to finally put down the weight. I called my lawyer next, explained the situation. He told me in no uncertain terms that I was about to be charged with vehicular manslaughter, obstruction of justice, and perjury.
If you cooperate, plead guilty, show remorse, you might be looking at 5 to 7 years, maybe less with good behavior. 5 to 7 years. The same sentence Ethan had received for a crime he didn't commit. There was a certain poetry in that. I drove to my parents' house, found them sitting in the living room, Dad with a glass of whiskey, Mom with tears streaming down her face. "Is it true," Mom asked, "what they're saying on the news?" I sat down across from them, looked at the people who'd raised me, loved me, believed in me. "It was me," I said. "I was driving that night. Ethan took the blame to protect me." Mom's face crumpled. Dad's grip tightened on his glass. "Why?" Mom whispered. "Why didn't you tell us?" "Because I was afraid. Because I was a coward. Because Ethan asked me to run, and I did. And then I couldn't stop running." 2 years, Dad said. His voice was rough, broken. 2 years we thought. 2 years we blamed. "I know. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." I expected anger, screaming, disownment. What I got was worse. Mom stood up, crossed the room, and wrapped her arms around me. "My boy," she sobbed. "My poor, stupid, broken boy." I cried then, really cried. For the first time since that night on County Road 7, I let myself feel the full weight of what I'd done. And then I went to the police station and turned myself in. 3 years later, I'm writing this from my cell, minimum security facility in upstate New York. 3 years down, 2 to go. Ethan was released 6 months after I confessed. The judge vacated his conviction, issued an apology from the state, and awarded him a settlement for wrongful imprisonment. Not nearly enough for what he went through, but something. He's doing okay now. Got a job at a nonprofit that helps wrongfully convicted people rebuild their lives. He visits me every month. Same crooked smile, same palm pressed against the glass. We don't talk about that night anymore. We don't need to. Everything that needed to be said was said a long time ago. Mom and Dad are still together, still struggling, but there's something different now, a lightness that wasn't there before. The lie that had been poisoning our family was finally gone, and in its absence, something like healing had begun. Grace Okonkwo came to my trial, sat in the front row every day, watched as I pleaded guilty, accepted responsibility, apologized to her and her family for the unimaginable harm I'd caused. After the sentencing, she approached me in the courthouse hallway. "I don't forgive you," she said. "I may never forgive you. But I believe in redemption, and I believe that paying for what you've done is the first step towards something better." She walked away without looking back. I think about her words a lot, about forgiveness and redemption, and whether they're really the same thing. I don't have any answers yet. Maybe I never will. What I do know is this: the weight is lighter now. Not gone. Never gone. I carry Richard Okonkwo with me every day. His face, his family, the future he'll never have. That's my sentence beyond the prison walls. That's the guilt that will follow me for the rest of my life. But I'm not drowning anymore. I'm not destroying myself with whiskey and pills and self-hatred.
I'm paying my debt, day by day, hour by hour.
Sarah was right. Confession isn't about absolution. It's about honesty. About finally looking at yourself in the mirror and accepting what you see. I see a man who made a terrible mistake. A man who compounded that mistake with cowardice and lies. A man who let his brother suffer for his sins. But I also see a man who finally told the truth, who stood up in a courtroom and said, I did this. I'm responsible. I accept the consequences. That man isn't a hero. He's barely even redemptive, but he's honest, and that's more than he was for 2 very long years. Ethan's last letter arrived yesterday. Same plain envelope, same prison return address crossed out and replaced with his new apartment in the city. Danny, I'm proud of you. I know that sounds strange coming from me, but it's true. What you did took courage, more courage than I had when I told you to run. I've been thinking about that night a lot lately, about the choices we both made. And I've realized something. We were both trying to protect each other. I was trying to protect you from prison. You were trying to protect my sacrifice from being meaningless. We were both wrong. We were both right. We were both just 2 brothers who loved each other and didn't know how to show it, except through destruction. But we're still here, Danny. We're both still here. And that means there's still time to get it right. I'll see you next month. Love, Ethan. I folded the letter and put it with the others. 23 months to go. Then I'll be free. Free to start over, to rebuild, to become someone Richard Okongwu might not be ashamed to share a world with. That's the goal anyway. The hope I hold on to when the nights get long and the walls close in. Some debts can never be fully repaid. Some sins can never be fully absolved. But you can spend the rest of your life trying. You can wake up every morning and choose to be better than you were the day before. That's what I'm doing now, one day at a time. So that's my story, the whole ugly truth of it. I killed a boy, let my brother take the blame, and spent 2 years as a free man who deserved to be in a cage. But here's what I want to know from you. Do you think Ethan was right to cover for me? Or did his sacrifice make everything worse? Some people tell me he enabled my cowardice. Others say he was just being a brother. I still don't know the answer. And if you've ever carried a secret like this, something that ate you alive from the inside, I want to know, what finally made you let it go? Was it a person, a moment, just hitting rock bottom so hard there was nowhere left to fall? Share your story in the comments. You don't have to use names or details, but sometimes just saying, I've been there, is enough to help someone else who's drowning. Because that's what I've learned in here. We're all carrying something. The only question is whether we carry it alone or whether we're brave enough to ask for help. I wasn't brave for a long time, but I'm trying to be now.